Happy Engineer, welcome back. Zach here, and we're going to talk today about performance. Your performance on the job, your performance in any area of life, and particularly today I'm going to share with you a framework that I call your peak performance multiplier. And before we get started, I want to let you know there is a worksheet that goes with this framework and this conversation that we're going to have today. So I'd encourage you to pop into the show notes, download the PDF worksheet that goes along with the conversation so you can take notes and actually follow along more clearly with what we're talking about in this framework. If you're on YouTube or watching on the website, the link is right there on the page for you as well. Grab the PDF and mark it up on your tablet or print out a copy and follow along so that you can remember this better and apply it into your situation. When it comes to development, learning, growth, there's a couple of things that I hear from engineers all the time, especially in this management level, the middle of the organization, where it gets really tough to continue to deliver everything that we're accountable for and develop ourselves and grow to reach that next level. The first thing is that we're always in firefighting mode. It feels like from the moment you show up at the office until the moment you leave, you're firefighting. It's from one crisis to another, and the whole day is full of stress and overwhelm and anxiety because we go from one fire to the next. The second thing I hear all the time is that there's really no opportunity for training. You're always having to do training and development on your own time. And believe me, I get it. The engineering leaders who work in our programs and coaching are always challenged in finding the time for the coaching. And it's the same whether you're learning a technical skill or you're working on personal development and growth as a leader. Finding time is tough, and the training gets disconnected from your actual work. We don't get to develop ourselves in the arena where the work is happening. And that's really, really tough. And the third thing is so often our development experiences are sink or swim. You get thrown into a new challenge, your boss delegates something to you that you've never done before, or you get stacked up against a situation where, frankly, it's not in your favor. The cards are not looking good, and we sink. And those sinking situations can really impact our self-confidence. It really impacts our self-esteem. We might start to fear that imposter syndrome, that self-doubt. And those situations then cause us to hold back. We withdraw. We're not as bold. We're not as courageous. Sink or swim is not the kind of environment that you want for your best learning, growth, and performance. Instead, we want to find our flow, getting out of firefighting mode and into a mode where you can flow through learning and flow through performance. And we'll talk about the distinctions. Instead of having to disconnect or go off-site for training, going to seminars and conferences or doing everything on your own time, we need to create situations where you can practice like you play, where you can practice without pressure. Being intentional with how we practice and mastering some new skills and techniques around how we practice is essential to reach peak. In how we practice, this is essential to reach peak performance. And the third and final piece of what we want is to get out of sink or swim and into a mode of gradual gains, adding a little bit of challenge at a time rather than constantly diving into the deep end when we don't yet have the skill to swim. Now, before I share with you what you need to know about the peak performance multiplier, I think you'll resonate with a story about Sally. Sally's not a real name, but Sally's an engineering leader who I've worked with, who came to me with her entire experience at work feeling like it was in the crisis zone. And because of that, feeling like constant firefighting and feeling like she was overwhelmed and overloaded, really burning out every single day, getting worse in her career, there was no opportunity for her to lean into growth, development, and get to that next level, so she was stuck. It was a perpetual loop of the hamster wheel at the level she was at. And frankly, it was a stressful, unfulfilling, unhappy experience for her. When we got intentional to pull her time and energy out of the crisis zone and to create space for being in the learning zone, for actually stepping into her performance zone. It was incredible how quickly she was able to not only shift her experience towards something more fulfilling and more happy, but to actually create the skills and the growth that she needed to then earn that next promotion and get to the next level. So let's dig in to how these zones play out and the way we need to allocate time and energy across each to multiply our peak performance. All right, if you don't have the worksheet, then you can follow along on the video, or if you're just listening in your mind's eye, what we want to look at first is this spectrum of calm to crisis, what I call the calm to crisis map. And it helps us to map out the 4 zones of how we show up in any area of life, but of course today we're specifically focused on our career. Now the x-axis of this map is the experience, on the one side being calm, on the other side crisis. So calm, thinking about that parasympathetic nervous system, that ease, that relaxed state where we really have access to our full faculties, all of our resources, our prefrontal cortex is at its best. And crisis, on the right-hand side, is that sympathetic nervous system. It's fight or flight. It's the part of us that says, oh, baby, it's on, and you're going to be in that really tight, narrow tunnel vision kind of experience. That's where the firefighting experiences happen. You are under immense pressure. And so the first thing we're going to do here is actually divide these zones by a line that marks pressure. The pressure line. When you cross that line, you're going to start to feel pressure in your life. Now, I should quickly describe what the y-axis is. The y-axis marks our competence. So if the x-axis is the crisis level, the y-axis on this map is your competence level. So we could think of being a rookie or having no competence at the bottom and being a total pro or an all-star at the top. As you develop more competence, you can take on more intensity, something that would be considered a higher level of crisis, without feeling that pressure. Now, there's 2 more lines that divide the experience here. The first is a line that I call the growth line. If you don't cross that line, you haven't actually gotten into a mode where you're growing at all. You're going to be still stagnant and you're in the comfort zone. The other line that divides this experience for us is what I call the crisis line. And this is that point where you go from just feeling pressure to truly feeling the state of crisis. So think of it this way. In this first easiest part of the curve, you have your comfort zone. Frankly, in the comfort zone, there is no growth. You don't want to hang out here, but sometimes we go there intentionally. We'll talk about why in just a moment. On the far other side of the map, then, is that crisis zone. And the crisis zone is also a place we don't want to go, but I want you to know that if you never get there, then you haven't pushed yourself hard enough. What do I mean by that? We don't want to stay inside of our comfort zones, our learning zones, and our performance zones so much so that you're not actually finding your edge. All right, if you never find crisis, it means you've never found your edge. Now, let's talk about these other 2 that I mentioned. You have the learning zone. Learning is the place where you're not feeling the pressure yet, but you're also out of the comfort zone. You're into something new. And after the learning zone is then your performance zone. Now, it's not that any one of these 4 is inherently the best or the most important. What I want you to recognize is that you're going to spend time in all of them. All right, you're going to spend time in all of them. But what we want to be intentional about is limiting our time up here in the comfort zone and being careful not to fall too frequently into our crisis zone. If you're never there, you're not pushing hard enough, but you don't want to intentionally hang out in your crisis zone. Most of us would think that time here in the performance zone is the goal. Let's work in the performance zone. Zach, this is the peak performance multiplier, right? Isn't that where we want to be? But what I'm actually going to show you is that the most important place for us to be intentional, where most engineering leaders are not getting the job done, is here in the learning zone. Performance is great, but you can't always be in the game. Think about sports for a moment. If every single moment of every single day was like being in the game, if you were in the NFL and you spent 8 hours a day, 5 days a week in game day, your body would be broken. You would never recover, and you don't actually build the skill during the game. We need to spend time intentionally in the learning zone. Now let's talk about how this comes to life in the actual peak performance multiplier. We have these 4 zones: the comfort zone, the learning zone, the performance zone, and the crisis zone. And what we want to do is be intentional, be proactive about how we allocate time in our careers across these zones and how we show up to each. The comfort zone, when you're there, you want to be focused on teaching and mentoring. Teaching and mentoring. It's not that doing work that's easy for you and completely comfortable for you is bad. But if you're going to do work that is rote, it's routine, it's simple, it's something you've done 1,000 times before, take the time and intention to use that comfort zone work to teach and mentor others. Create lunch and learns, create opportunities for junior engineers to shadow you and learn from you. Create standard operating procedures or design guides or videos that have instructions on how to do the work. Take that extra step to teach and mentor. Don't do comfort zone work by yourself, or it's going to turn into the boredom zone for you. Let's skip learning for just a moment. When you're in your performance zone, the most important thing is that you manage your energy. Managing your energy is essential. We talk about this in the Lifestyle Engineering Blueprint all the time, that productivity and performance is dependent on managing your energy. Back to that game day metaphor. You can't be at 100% full throttle all the time. Watch the fuel gauge. Manage your energy. When you're in the performance zone, it drains your energy quickly. And it also leaves you in a place where you're depleted and not able to show up to other areas of your life. If you're in performance mode all day long, then not only are you suboptimally learning, but you're also leaving yourself depleted for the rest of your day. And if you find yourself in that crisis mode, you've pushed a little too hard, you got into a zone where you don't have what it takes, ask for help. The key is to ask for help. Don't let your ego get in the way. Don't let your ego get in the way. And in addition to that, we need to be careful about what memories are created in crisis and to heal those memories. When you're in a crisis mode, your conscious mind creates that tunnel vision, that one-track mind. And a lot of times the experience that you have there gets ingrained in your nervous system as the way out of crisis. So often we build bad habits because of crisis. We create bad patterns, bad learning. It's not the best way to do it because in crisis, you're not learning. You're simply escaping and surviving. So ask for help and then do the mindset work to heal from the memories created during crisis. Again, it's not that crisis is inherently bad and you need to avoid it at all costs, but when you get there, make sure you manage it appropriately. Now let's come back to learning. The learning zone is the one where we forget to spend time. We need to practice without pressure. To accelerate learning and multiply performance, we need to practice without pressure. This is the zone that engineering leaders avoid, sometimes on accident, sometimes on purpose, or don't even realize that they're not spending time there. Part of it's because we're not taught how to do this well. The other part is that our job environments and the culture of our companies doesn't support being in this zone very often. But mostly, in my opinion, it's because we are not intentional to put ourselves there. We have the opportunity, if we take responsibility, to do this, but we don't know how and we don't really understand the difference. This is where really critical tools like shadow boxing or visualization really come in handy. Learning how to practice without being in the game, so to speak. There's so many examples of how this plays out. A really easy one is public speaking or presenting to an audience. You might think that the best way is to always get in front of the room. Just keep getting reps. But if you're struggling with feeling like it's a crisis, or you're at that edge of your performance zone where there's a lot of pressure in how you feel during those presentations, you're not going to learn as much in that environment. If the pressure is too high, then you're not going to learn. So you're getting reps, but they aren't reps that are helping you grow at your peak. They're reps that are actually ingraining potentially poor performance. So we need to back off the pressure. We need to move towards calm and away from crisis and get back into the learning zone where you can practice in a safe environment, practice without pressure. That's where you are going to see that multiplicative effect in your career in any domain that you're seeking development. So let's quickly recap. There's 4 zones. When you think about going from calm to crisis, as you move up from being a rookie to a pro, you're going to be spending time in all 4 zones. The comfort zone, then you cross that growth line into the learning zone, you cross the pressure line into the performance zone, and then you cross the crisis line into the crisis zone. It's not that one is better or worse, but it's about being intentional to spend time where you need to get the results and the peak performance you're seeking. If you're in the comfort zone, focus on teaching and mentoring. When you're in the learning zone, it's about practicing without pressure. Performance, you want to manage your energy. And in crisis, ask for help. All right, I want you to ask yourself, how do I take that concept and apply it into my situation right now? Am I over-indexing on being at 100% in that performance zone? I'm always on. It's always game day. And how can I create intentional opportunities to downshift the pressure and to practice in the learning zone, to practice without pressure? I can tell you that for 90% of the engineering leaders I've coached, the learning zone is the place where we are not spending enough time. I'd encourage you to take action on that. Grab a copy of the worksheet, take notes there. You can capture anything that stands out to you there on the worksheet. And also, if you're ready to multiply your performance and you need those distinctions, you need to learn the tools. How do I shadow box? How do I visualize better? How do I get out of the crisis zone and back into a place of healing from those memories so that I can recover and grow faster? If that's you, then let's get a conversation together to support you on those next steps. Pick up your phone, text the word lifestyle to 55444 if you would like an opportunity to get on the phone with one of our engineering career coaches. We're going to explore the roadblocks that are holding you back from growth and what it takes to accelerate peak performance for you so you can get that next promotion, but also enjoy the ride. How do we have balance and growth? That's what it's all about. Text the word lifestyle to 55444, or there's a link right there in the show notes where you can get a call time booked as well, whatever's best for you. I hope this is helpful. Take action. You don't reach peak performance by staying in the comfort zone. Let's do this.